Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. I'm Jim Wendorf. I'll be your moderator today. I'm the IEEE Internet Initiative Program Director. So today we're excited to share some information with you about the IEEE Internet Initiative, and also would like to encourage you to become involved. Before we get started, we have a couple of reminders that you should be aware of. First, we are recording this webinar, so it will be available after the fact for those who were not able to make it, and also for yourselves if you wish to review it afterward. We'd also like to indicate how we'll run the webinar. So we'll have Oleg give his presentation. We expect it'll be about 30 minutes or thereabouts. And then afterwards, we'll have a question and answer period. Please send your questions as they come up in your mind via the chat facility that it should be available to you on your screen. And we'll try to answer those questions when we get to the end. Also, for those who have audio connections, have dialed in, please remember to leave your phones on mute so that it does not interfere with the audio. So with that, I'd like to introduce our speaker today. It is Oleg Logvinov. He is the chair of the IEEE Internet Initiative. He is also the chair of the P2413 Working Group, Standard for an Architectural Framework for the Internet of Things, and is also a member of the Corporate Advisory Group of the IEEE Standards Association. In his regular work assignment, he's the Director of Special Assignments for the Industrial Power Conversion Division of STMicroelectronics. Welcome, Oleg, and take it away.
Thank you for the introduction, Jim. And I noticed that you had a very difficult time defining what my real job is. Well, it is confusing and sometimes maybe very much intertwining, but there is a very good reason for that. And I'll talk about it throughout this presentation. Next slide, please. Well, I will start with something that is probably very familiar to all of you. The Internet, right? Internet enables innovation, economic growth, and societal benefits. I think nobody can argue with that. And some of those benefits and some of the innovation is really truly remarkable. In its essence, very simple, but yet at the same time so powerful. I live here in New Jersey, so one of my favorite applications enabled by Internet is, believe it or not, pothole detection that stems from a very simple usage of smartphone, accelerometer built into the smartphone, and GPS. But believe it or not, today we can leverage this remarkably simple approach to essentially create a very statistically accurate map of potholes that exist throughout the towns, and even more so, define, as many cities today, including Boston, already do, priorities in which potholes have to be repaired to minimize the damage. So you can correlate the frequency of somebody driving around potholes as well as the depth and severity, and minimize the damage to your car's tires, and also optimize how a city can spend the money repairing them. A very simple example. But I think to me this simple example demonstrates how powerful the Internet is, how powerful this notion of connecting everything together can become and what it can bring to us. And of course, without a doubt, we talk about Internet of Things, and as you can see, I'm involved with a working group defining architectural framework for Internet of Things. The power of Internet stretches even further, giving us even deeper ability to connect not only computers, but also everything that surrounds us. And that creates an opportunity to provide unprecedented services. Who would have thought, as an example, a few years back that we would be using our smartphones instead of GPSs, and our GPS on the smartphone with Maps application would be able to guide us not only to the place where we would like to go, but also tell us along the way what is worth seeing, or maybe a restaurant or two that are worth to stop by and sample local meal. But this is a reality, and this reality was enabled by Internet. This reality was essentially built on the top of this ability to create a combination of real-time data with real-time decision-making and powerful visualizations that is now embedded in the palm of our hands. All of that is great. And to make this greatness even greater, and sorry for the redundancy, I think we need to be very careful with paying attention to cybersecurity and privacy issues that arise globally as we proliferate many applications into internet and into the domain of IoT. Next slide, please. So we're moving, as I mentioned before, from internet to Internet of Things to Internet of Everything, as coined by some of the companies. What does it mean? It means that new technology policy challenges are emerging in cybersecurity, privacy, and internet governance. Why? Well, it's quite simple. If you think about IP packets, they travel around the world without knowing any borders. But at the same time, privacy policies in many cases are limited to a country, in some cases even very much localized. If you look at the ongoing internet innovation and sustainability and market growth that are dependent today on internet policy, we quickly realize that we cannot develop technologies being completely ignorant to what policies those technologies need to work within the confines of. And at the same time, if we would like to develop internet policies and public policies, we need to rely on sound and neutral technical guidance, understanding what internet needs to be supported by from the technology side. It is very difficult to develop technologies that is ignorant of policies. It is very difficult to develop policies that are ignorant of the technologies. The two need to come together, cross-pollinate, and learn from each other, leverage each other to create the best possible environment that gives us all of those benefits of the internet I talked about a second ago. Next slide, please. So why is Internet Initiative? The answer is quite simple. What we're trying to accomplish here, we're trying to connect technical community with policy-making communities. We would like to make sure that we create an environment in which policymakers and technology developers can exchange their ideas, can exchange knowledge, can exchange the information to enrich each other's experiences, knowledge, and also make much more informed decisions. We need to inform the debates and decisions. We also need to make sure that trustworthy technology solutions and best practices are implemented so they can support that type of policies that we will develop in the future and that we will need to comply with. And in some cases, maybe there will be a variety of policies depending where we are in geographies. So the Internet Initiative is something that facilitates the engagement of technology, industry, and policy experts in a neutral environment for the collective benefit of all of the stakeholders. And of course, as an individual, I'm looking at the Internet Initiative as something that will help me to be more comfortable with doing my business on the Internet, leveraging all of the Internet services, without being concerned how my data will be used, without being concerned that my applications can be compromised. We live in a world where even a thermostat is becoming a part of the connected environment. It was very simple, right? Unless somebody would break into our house, it probably would not be possible to set a different setting on our thermostat. Today, our thermostat is connected to the web, and we can access it from any place we would like. It's very convenient, it's great, it's fantastic. But at the same time, we need to be cognizant of the fact that the same thermostat can be accessed by somebody else in a malicious way or just to play a prank. We need to make sure that this environment is safe and secure. So cybersecurity and privacy, internet governance is something that is rising to the forefront, and we need to pay attention to those issues to make sure that the benefits that stemming from the connectivity that is pervasive and convenient and makes everything so easy actually benefits us without causing any harm. Next slide, please. Internet public policy landscape is growing more and more complex. Why is this complexity coming from? Well, it's quite simple. If you look at all of the development, as I said, around the world, with Internet not knowing any boundaries, but technologies supporting effectively the development of something that is so globalized, but we're still living in a world where policies are limited to the countries and in some cases even locales. We need to understand how the proliferation of big data, IoT, smart grid, smart city, intelligent transportation, e-health, and the list of those subjects probably and domain of applications can be stretched for another 2 hours of conversations. How does it all combine with the policies and technology development? How the public policy and the new technology generation can fit into the realm of this pervasive internet demonstrating itself through the IoT or Internet of Everything. So we need to understand how we apply new approaches to managing technical policy development. How do we apply those approaches to developing new technologies? And the only answer here, I think, is a cross-pollination. It means collaboration and cross-education from policymakers to technology developers and from technology developers to policymakers. Next slide, please. Internet is at crossroads. Frankly speaking, I don't like the title of the slide, and I'll explain why. I don't think we're standing at the crossroads. I think we're standing on the cusp of unprecedented opportunities. We're standing on the cusp of something that we have never seen before. We can create the environment where everything around us has an opportunity to collaborate and work behind the scenes to make our lives better, to augment our lives, and to create the environment which not only is able to cater to us, but also has the ability to predict what we would like, the environment that can actually anticipate our needs while making our lives more efficient and more conscious of what energy we consume and what natural resources we spend on a daily basis. I'll give you a very simple example. Imagine that one day you are in your car, and perhaps it's an electric vehicle driving down the road. I'm not even talking about self-guiding cars. I'm talking about the regular cars that we can drive on the way home. So I think it's very easy to imagine that predicting where we're going and what is our trajectory for the path that we have selected, our home and our car and our smartphone collaborating through the cloud can figure out what time we will be at home, what is going to be the weather forecast for this evening, and if it is in fact necessary to set a specific temperature or recovery mode for air conditioning or heating equipment so that the temperature is very comfortable when we get home. It's a very simple example, but think about how many domains have to collaborate to accomplish such a simple task. We're talking about home energy management. We're talking about our smartphone in the palm of our hand. We're talking about our car navigation system. We're talking about some kind of cloud analytics service that all need to work together in concert to enable this great opportunity for us to be much more comfortable, so we don't even need to think about how to program our thermostat. But with that comes also a greater level of efficiency, because if for some reason we're stuck in traffic, and that's predictable as we know today, our home may anticipate that the recovery cycle does not need to start at 6 o'clock. It may be shifted to 7 o'clock, by which we can also save some energy. So all of that gives us a tremendous opportunity to also augment our lives and make them more efficient and more comfortable. But at the same time, that type of very tight connectivity and tight coupling of all of the domains and all of the services together creates, of course, an opportunity for much more severe breaches of security and privacy. And as a result, we need to become much more conscious as to what kind of policies we need to apply to the new generation of the Internet, what kind of technologies we need to develop so cybersecurity is taken care of, and how do they need to interact and work together to be in concert. So we don't have a situation where policy is developed in a vacuum and completely ignores what technology can and cannot do, or technology is developed in a vacuum of policy information and cannot really accomplish what is demanded by the policies. So that's the whole idea of not being at the crossroad. It's being at the very threshold of the new and amazing opportunities that Internet and Internet of Things and Internet of Everything can bring to us, augmenting our lives and making them better. Next slide, please. IEEE has a tremendous heritage in the Internet innovation. If you think about many of the standards that IEEE had brought to market in the domain of wired connectivity, such as 802.3 as we know it, Ethernet, or as an example, IEEE 1901, as we know today, power line communication technology, home plug as an example, which enables communicating over conventional electricity wires without doing anything else. Or 8211, as we know, it's Wi-Fi, which enables all of our small devices to connect to the internet and provide us with fantastic services. So all of those technologies are very much foundational to enabling connectivity to the internet and supporting internet. IEEE also has a tremendous portfolio of standards working in the area of, as an example, encryption, 1363, or as an example, enabling removable storage, or enabling, as an example, printers and copiers, and not to mention technologies like, as an example, 2030.5 that enable metadata and communication among the devices engaged in energy services, or 2030 smart grid standards that became a foundational piece describing how the systems of the system and smart grid can connect together. IEEE has this ability to stretch across multiple domains of knowledge and expertise in the technical field, brings them together and drive standards forward and enables a new generation of products and opportunities for us. As an example, I mentioned before that I chair IEEE P2413 working group that is focused on the development of the standards for an architectural framework for Internet of Things. One of the foundational pieces in the architectural framework are trust, identity management, security and privacy, operational safety. All of those things need to be taken into the consideration when we're talking about creation of the new generation of products and services and enabling this new internet that will bring us so many benefits. And IEEE has a tremendous expertise and tremendous portfolio of standards and experts that can be brought to the table to solve pretty much any problems that you can imagine today. Next slide, please. IEEE is truly a platform dedicated to advancing the innovation. If you look at the technologies that are working under the IEEE umbrella, you can probably find that every single technology aspect that is in existence today is covered by either IEEE conference or standards in development or publication of a sort. And our members really, I cannot imagine a more multifaceted and more multidimensional technology expert community that work in just about every facet of Internet of Things, smart grid, cybersecurity, privacy, smart cities, smart transportation, intelligent sensors, and anything you can imagine. At the same time, another dimension of IEEE reach and coverage is the presence of IEEE members and offices around the globe. Pretty much in every country of the world today is presence of IEEE. And this presence is amplified through the communities, through the conferences, through publications, through the engagement with industrial partners and engagement in standard development activities, and many other facets of IEEE activities that fostering the innovation for the benefit of humanity. Next slide, please. So why Internet Initiative was born here? The answer is actually quite simple. IEEE is a very unique platform for collaboration. Based on what I discussed before, it's very easy to understand that IEEE has a unique platform that can create a forum for information exchange, knowledge growth, and capacity of building at the intersection of public policy and technology. It's an environment that can nurture collaboration, cross-pollinating the knowledge from many facets that are necessary to be brought to the table in solving such complex problems. And as I said before, we have great examples. 2030 was a great example of a standard that was born on, I would say, crossroads of many disciplines and became the standard of standards. I think one of the very important aspects of IEEE is that IEEE holds a neutral standing, allowing balanced view of all parties. That is very important because when we're talking about developing of policies that have to cover globalized technologies, we need to have an environment where neutrality is absolutely important. It is no questions about it that IEEE has a globally recognized reputation for supporting open collaboration and consensus building. Many standards that we have today in use by many industries, I think is great example and great evidence of that. We are known for working in a paradigm of openness, transparency, inclusivity in standards and technology development. All of the standards that have been developed by IEEE are developed on an open basis. Anybody is welcome to participate in the standards development group. There is absolutely nothing that can stop you to be, well, bad behavior could, but short of that, nothing can stop you from being a part of the community developing a standard. And of course, I would say many decades of the proven standards development process that is rooted in consensus, due process, openness, right to appeal, and balance are the evidence of what we have done in the past and what we're going to accomplish in the future. All of that creates this wonderful platforms that can be applied now to the new paradigm of the development of privacy, security, cybersecurity, and technical policy, all residing on the same platform. It is important to mention on the next slide, please, IEEE values and common practices. If you look at what IEEE Internet Initiative resides on, it is a set of values that have been the core set of values for IEEE in the development of standards, conducting conferences, and many other activities. Those are transparency, open discussion, protection of privacy, bottom-up development, transnational cooperation, and consensus standards. Those values are very important as we're talking about developing something on such a globalized, such a vast scale. And of course, those values are used by IEEE members today in all of the technical contributions that are developed worldwide in thousands of standards that have been developed and under development today. Next slide, please. That is why we created our Internet community. We would like to invite you to become a part of it. We would like to invite you to be somebody who is driving where Internet Initiative is going and why we would like to influence collaboration among policy makers and technology developers. Unlike collaboration in information exchange environment, enable the communication, enable the dialogue, enable a vibrant discussion that can yield new ideas, new concepts, new approaches to resolving the issues that need to be resolved. You are invited to join. Everyone is welcome. There are no limitations. If you have something positive and constructive to say, everyone will be delighted to hear your opinion, your contribution. You will be very much welcome as a member of this vibrant community in development. Just to give you a couple of examples of bidirectional dialogue enabled by this community. Next slide, please. We're conducting many public events in which we're engaging with various stakeholders, we're engaging with various regions, and we're starting the dialogue. On this slide, you can see an example. It's not a exhausting example. It's just a couple of near-term events that will take place in the very near future. One of the main events that we're starting in May is going to be our ETAP event, IEEE ETAP, Experts in Technology and Policy Forum on Internet Governance, Cybersecurity, and Privacy. This is not just one single event. It's the beginning of the conversation. We are inviting, this is by invitation only event, a set of experts. We're trying to limit this first event to not more than 50 people in the room, to have a very constructive roundtable type of discussion. But the outcomes of this discussion will become public white papers that we intend to publish. And we will talk about what is the directions that we need to take with this initiative, where we need to go, what are the topmost issues that we need to focus on, and how potentially we are proposing to solve them. After this event, we plan to conduct a series of continuation mini ETAPs or even full-blown ETAPs that will take place in many places around the world. As an example, right now we're talking about having one of those events in Israel. We're talking about having one of those events in India and China. They haven't been announced yet, they haven't been finalized yet, but this is what's in works, and you're welcome to get involved, to contribute your opinion, to contribute your point of view, and potentially maybe we'll find another geographical locale where we need to go and have an event of that nature. So get involved. you'll be a part of it. You can shape how the outcome and how this live dialogue and living white paper can progress and evolve into the future. And of course, there is going to be an IEEE Symposium on Security and Privacy in San Jose. Of course, we're talking about World Summit on Information Society in Switzerland. We're talking about Eurodig in Sofia, Bulgaria in June. This is just near-term events, and there are many of them throughout the end of this year that you can get involved with and collaborate with us, collaborate among yourself, and bring something new, something interesting, something exciting to the forefront of everybody's mind and attention. Next slide, please. To summarize, the IEEE Internet Initiative is something that we created that is to work for the benefit of everyone. It is a platform. It is an open, collaborative engagement framework to track Internet governance and related policy questions and hopefully resolve them. It is a collective interface for engaging IEEE in the interactive process of Internet governance, cybersecurity, and policy work. We would like to leverage the fundamentals and values of our existing process that has evolved over the decades and has been proven with time and has been proven through so many standards, and there are thousands of them. We would like to apply it to definition of technical policy. We would like to apply it to the definition of new technologies. And IEEE Initiative is not an isolated initiative. It's something that is envisioned to work with other facets of IEEE and collaborate with other activities that we have to essentially create a fabric that creates this new generation of technologies and policies that benefit all of us, that make our life more comfortable, more convenient, and secure at the same time. We would like to improve the state of knowledge among policymakers and technology developers. We would like to help all of those communities to come together to essentially create open and exciting policy development and technology development process that can help each other and at the same time can help us to move to the next generation of our internet and the next generation of our society, if you will. Next slide, please. As I mentioned before, this event and our initiative and many events that we're conducting under the umbrella of this initiative are envisioned as a dialogue, as an engagement mechanism, as a platform for collaboration. And we envision them to benefit pretty much everybody who is involved, policymaker, technologists, industry, ourselves as individual users and consumers of this technology. And I know it's quite a busy slide, and I'm not going to bore you with reading all of those points. You can do it offline when you review it yourself. But the point here is the initiative is designed to provide something for everybody. If you're a policymaker, you will learn about the technology. If you're a technologist, you can get informed from the point of view of industry and policymakers what is missing, what is lacking in technology. And if you're in industry, you will have an opportunity to ensure that the future of our technologies rests on a solid foundation of policymaking and technology development working together. Next slide, please. So how do you get involved? Well, you can engage in our community. You can join our community by sending this simple email. If you go online, you will see this button, be connected, join here. Welcome to click it, and there is no cost. You don't have to pay anything. You can be involved at any time, and you can contribute as much as you can or as little as you can. But your word and your contribution, your input is welcome and is very important. Next slide, please. And now, I think we arrived at the point of our discussion when it is up to you to ask the questions. I welcome your questions.
Okay. Thank you, Oleg. We have received a few questions already via the chat, and please, everyone is invited, if you have some questions, to please send them via the chat, and I will forward them on to Oleg. First question that we received, could you please comment on routers in consumers' homes and some of the related security issues? Many are not well secured, and how that might relate to all this.
Well, security in home routers is just one small aspect of it, because what it is, it's the ability to provide firewall functions, it's the ability to provide the encryption of our home network. But think about the services that need to be connected to the outside world and collaborate with cloud analytics and other services, and maybe even other homes. Services that are being in development right now. Think about the examples that I cited earlier about you being in a car driving towards your home, and your home understanding where you are and trying to do something. So it's not just enough to provide a secure network inside of your home. It's not just enough to improve the security by encrypting your communication within Wi-Fi or home plug or Ethernet network. It is also important to understand how the information that can be originated from your home or consumed by your home can be secured, how you can manage safely the identity of this information to understand that it comes from this safe and trustworthy source. Those issues will layer on the top of just simple security and firewalls of our routers. Those are issues related to how we use our data and what can be done with our data and what data we can source to make more educated and more intelligent decisions.
Okay. Another question. Who are some of the relevant policymakers, and how is the IEEE communicating with them, and how can IEEE members get involved in that, and how are they?
Well, how to get involved, I think this answer is quite simple. You can become a member of our community. You can become a member of our conferences and events. You can become a member of our dialogue that we're starting with, essentially creations of white papers that will become a living document. Who are the makers of the policies? Well, we have many institutions, including the government itself today, that are involved in policymakers, and it changes as you move from country to country and in some cases from one locale to another. But what is important to realize, as I mentioned before, is to create this bidirectional or actually omnidirectional dialogue in which we can cross-pollinate the knowledge coming from policymakers to technologies and vice versa. But in some cases, even among the policymakers, because best practices implemented, as an example, in one country could be quite interesting to learn about for another country. So what we're trying to create here is this mutual platform, the environment that can nurture that type of collaboration. And as I said before, it's a very easy answer. You can get involved by simply following the links provided in this presentation.
Okay. Another question. How does the IEEE Internet Initiative work with ICON, the IETF, etc.?
As we are starting this activity, and this activity was launched last year, we already have quite a few collaborative links with ICON, IETF, and many other organizations. And as you can see, and you will see on our portal, there are many events that we're participating in together with those organizations, and we're working with them to essentially make sure that everyone is aligned. It's not creation of an island. It's a creation of collaborative environment for everybody to come together and help each other. And we envision inside of our initiative that this collaborative network will only grow, and more organizations will establish relationships, liaison, partnerships, and many other forms of collaboration with. And by the way, Jim, you're welcome to chime in with your thoughts as well.
I think you're doing very well, thank you. Another question, are there overlapping efforts on internet privacy and security in the IEEE and in other standards organizations?
To the best of my knowledge, no. I think this is a very unique effort focused on bringing together communities that generally don't interact and don't work together. So I think from that point of view, as I said, to the best of my knowledge, this is the first of a kind attempt to bring policymakers and technology developers together to create this cross-pollinating, nurturing environment for the next generation of Internet.
Yeah, of course, this activity focuses on the technology policy aspects of the Internet and security and privacy, and there are many much more purely technology development activities within the IEEE and in standards, in the IEEE standards and in other standards organizations.
Yes.
An interesting, very specific question maybe that you can help with. What rules govern targeted advertising based on search engine entries?
I think you're asking me to render a legal opinion, and I would like to shy away from that.
Okay.
But by the way, it's something that I would encourage to be brought into the discussion in our framework, in our platform. And if it's something that we need to make more visible and there are some issues that can be found or uncovered, it's something that we can definitely discuss and ponder on during our dialogue and during our events. So whoever brought this question in, I would encourage you to be involved.
Yes, and this is certainly a topic that has received a lot of attention, for example, in the anti-spam laws that you have brought in Canada and elsewhere. So it's a very hot topic, what rules can be governing advertising, what's allowed to be sent and when not. So it's a very active area of debate. Another question, is this initiative led by the IEEE Standards Association? They noted many IEEE USA topics and fields of interest.
Well, this initiative is formed under the president of IEEE. Standards Association contributes a lot of resources and a lot of expertise related to the consensus development, but this is an overarching IEEE activity.
Okay, so another thing, let me see if I can summarize this. Politicians, engineers, and industry are very diverse groups in the many regions of the world, engaging in many different issues. Can you comment on how you will introduce some focus to the discussions? What is the first real problem that is going to be targeted?
Well, I think it's an excellent question, and I think this question is a very good explanation why IEEE is a unique platform to bring those diverse groups together. Whenever we start standards development process, if you look at any standards development group, it's a very, very, very diverse group of people or entities. And having been myself through several standards development circles and cycles, I can tell you that diversity of individuals and opinions and views and entities that we encounter in standards development process is sometimes remarkable. And we have expertise how to work with it and how to make a focused progress driving the groups to essentially accomplishing the goals they started with, is creation of certain standards. So the reason we launched this Internet Initiative is because we believe we can leverage that expertise in conducting conferences and gathering a lot of people under the same umbrella, conducting standards development process and building the consensus towards a united goal. And we believe this process and our expertise can be reapplied to focusing the communities that we're building today on what we would like to achieve. What would be the first and most important question and goal? Well, I would like to defer this answer until we have the first version of our white paper published, because it is not my opinion, it's not Jim's opinion that will count here. It will be the opinion of experts that will come together to discuss it, prioritize, and put the most important issue on the top of everything else. And we will just facilitate this going forward. And I encourage you after a May event, stay tuned and look for the first version of the white paper. Hopefully it will contain the answer to your question.
Yes, I'd just add to that indeed our first event, the Experts in Technology and Policy forum that we're holding, will hopefully get us some initial focus into particular topics to be followed. And then following that, we have also recognized this regional diversity and as Oleg had talked about, the need for potentially some of continuing series of of these types of events, but more in different regions to be able to address the issues that are more specific to those regions. So we do anticipate expanding out to bring in some of that diversity and understand how some of the ideas that are being developed can also be applied more regionally. Next question was, do you have contacts with think tanks such as the East-West Institute, the Center for Strategic International Studies, and the Brookings Institute?
We have some of the contacts, but we're open and looking for additional contacts. So everyone who has an idea who we should start working with or collaborate with, please send us an email, and we will definitely try to establish this contact and collaboration. In fact, I would strongly encourage suggestions of that sort.
Okay, so another question. Which sectors do you see driving cybersecurity developments and tools? What are the comparative levels of advancement of manufacturing, financial technology, and consumer, etc.?
It's an interesting question, and I think it's more of a philosophical question because the issues of security and privacy and safety are important pretty much in any sector. Whether we're building a vessel that is supposed to carry the oil or we're building a connected pacemaker, it's very hard to argue where security and privacy would play the more important role. I think it's equally important in both cases. So we will see contributions probably from every single domain. And I think we'll see contributions in the privacy spectrum and safety spectrum and security spectrum coming from many industries. But I think what's very interesting is that with the proliferation of Internet and creation of IoT and Internet of Everything, we're starting to see this transition from a vertical nature where silos of industries and silos of vertical applications are starting to transform into horizontal systems, into systems where platform is now capable of catering information to many application domains. And that brings with itself additional complexity level. And what I personally envision, this is my personal opinion, that we will see an emergence of new type of class of security experts and security solution providers that actually are building their solutions towards enabling that type of multifaceted nature of horizontal platforms that have to interact with so many application domains. And there are many approaches that have been under the discussion. Some of you probably have heard about the use of virtualization as a means to isolate silos of information and provide secure execution environment. There are some other interesting approaches related to the identity management stemming from the ability to identify not only the devices and services providing the information, but also information itself, information tagging. So there are many concepts, and I do personally believe that we will see an emergence of new breed type of security and privacy protection companies that are specifically targeting this horizontal nature of Internet of Things and Internet of Everything.
Okay. What do you envision as the process for providing technical input to national policy, processes, and Internet governance fora?
Well, that is exactly what we're trying to define in our ETAP events, and that's exactly what we're trying to build as an approach. So if you have any suggestions, my recommendation would be please let us know, and we would be happy to invite you to be a part of this discussion, part of this dialogue, and hopefully we can together develop the best possible approach that is the most effective and yields us the best possible outcome.
This is more of a comment, but maybe you would wish to comment on it as well. As I would like to say that the IEEE European ICT Working Group would be happy to collaborate with this effort. Any comments?
The comment is, well, I love comments like that, and we would be delighted to collaborate with you. So, Jim, I guess you will take an action item to set up a call and see how we can move forward with it.
And actually, as an action item, we are already doing that.
Indeed.
Could you elaborate how security technology people understand the policymaker understand policy and what the policymakers might be able to tell us?
It's an interesting question, but honestly speaking, I would prefer security experts to speak for themselves, and so would I prefer to have policymakers express their opinion. I think it would be quite inappropriate for me to put words in their mouths.
I'm just reading, but I think this one was similar. How does it relate to other bodies, whether policy, developmental, or operational? Maybe you could mention some of the government organizations and so on that we also interact with, the UN, World Trade Organization.
Well, Jim, why don't you take this question, because I think you have a list handy and you can probably be more precise than I can be.
I think that's about it. We do interact with the other governing organizations, for the U.S. Activities, of course, through our IEEE USA in coordination with them. If there are issues that come up, we interact with that. In other parts of the world, we have a mechanism for monitoring the activities which are going on, identifying where issues arise and get in touch with the appropriate organizations to engage with them. And as I'd mentioned, of course, with the United Nations activities, we monitor those. The IGF, the Internet Governance Forum, which is under all of that, and so on. So I think we've covered that. Are there current, just let me glance through if there's other ones. Are there current or planned standardizations between IoT and 5G developments? Maybe a little separate from the topic, but Oleg, maybe you can address.
Well, 5G is seen as a good communication technology or potential communication technology solution for IoT. But I think it's a little bit too early to talk about how 5G shapes out, because today we're at the very beginning of the 5G development, and I think there are great examples of how wireless technology in general can benefit IoT. But at the same time, I think it's something that will take some time to decide.
Another question, can all IEEE regions participate? This person is in Region 9, Latin America. Would like to know if they can get involved.
Absolutely. In fact, we encourage participation from all of the regions of the world. And that is a very important point. There are no boundaries for the Internet, and there should be no boundaries for interest and participation in this new initiative. So you're very much welcome.
Yeah, and indeed, that's what we're envisioning is as we develop the community of technology and policy experts, that it won't be only the kind of single global community that's interacting together, but again, because we understand that policies are enacted regionally. You need to have kind of regional interest groups that focus on the more important issues that are local and important to them. So we envision that that's how this will evolve, is that we will have these regional groups that also feed in and adapt and contribute to the discussion. Question here, I'm not sure. Okay, can you provide an example of a policy technology interaction? Do you have a good example?
No, I don't have good examples, and I think that's the reason why we're creating this initiative, because we do believe that such interaction is necessary.
And how does what IEEE is doing relate to other industry interoperability efforts? They gave some examples like ball join or OIC or thread or HomeKit. Maybe you can think of some others.
Well, I think the relationship is all of the examples cited here are interoperability as a communication and application layer, but we also need to understand how privacy and security of data and information can be handled. So I think it's quite complementary.
Just a simple question, when was the Internet Initiative launched?
The Internet Initiative was launched last year as essentially a small think tank of a few people inside of IEEE, and we're expanding this initiative starting this year. I was appointed as the chair of this initiative in January, and we're expanding our reach, our collaboration invitation, and we would like everybody to be involved with what we're doing here. So it's a very new initiative, and we're growing rapidly. It's a great time to be a part of it.
And one other question that I see here, suppose one does become a member of the IEEE committee or this activity, will he or she get some recognition by the policymakers?
Well, it's a very good question, and it's a very difficult answer at the same time. We're going to be as successful as we're going to make ourselves. And I apologize for this evasive answer, but it is really the truth. And if you will see what type of people will get involved with this initiative, you'll probably believe that we will be successful, because our goal is to get people from the policymaking domain engaged, as well as the people from the technology development domain engaged. And if we are successful in reaching out to broad audience in both of those groups, I think we'll be very successful, because at the end, what we're doing, we're trying to provide a platform and unique collaboration environment in which we can actually help both communities to do much better with the decision-making process, because they will be much more informed. So I think it's in our hands, and I'm very optimistic as to what the outcome of this initiative would be.
Okay, so thank you very much, everyone, for your questions, and Oleg for all of yours. Go to the next slide.
Well, it was my pleasure, and I would like to thank everybody for the attention and the attending.
Yeah, so thanks, everyone, for your time today. Again, we encourage you and your organizations to join this initiative. And again, you can send emails to that address that's shown on the screen, internetinitiative@IEEE.org. Also, we have the website that will be ready within a few days, in the coming days. It will have the URL internetinitiative, all one word, .IEEE.org, and that will be accessible then for getting access to all of your joining the community and all of the news as the initiative develops. So thank you all once again for joining. We will make available the recording to everyone who's registered afterwards, and copies of the slides as well. I believe we'll come out with that, yes. So look for the information about how to receive that following this webinar. Thank you all.